Hello, everyone, and welcome to another insightful conversation on this platform. We have with us Mr. Rajeev Narang, who is a sales and marketing consultant, branding expert, author of a very wonderful book, a TEDx speaker, as well as a keynote speaker. By profession, he is a transformation consultant for people, products, and processes. With more than 30 years of experience in marketing and communication of the business across the globe, he has assisted in launching of numerous brands and startups. As a conduit to offer these services, he leads a branding and marketing company by the name of Brand Buzz for the last 20 years. He specializes in brand strategy, branding and identity, advertising and communication design, packaging, visual merchandising, photography, sales and promotion activity, retail design, as well as customer loyalty programs. His experience spreads across decades, and with 40 plus diversified industries, he has contributed towards many emerging and established brands. He has created and expanded the brand footprint, developed visibility, created marketing strategies, continuous marketing conversations with all interfaces. He has shared his experience in a sales, marketing, and brand communication through next level training, a future ready workshop targeting MBA and young sales executives. He is also a TEDx speaker and he has spoken at various platforms. He has authored a very useful and practical book, Get Up, Arise, Boost Your Sales Success. So it's our pleasure and privilege to have you with us and welcome to this platform.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. It's my pleasure to be back to Jaipur and back to be a part of this amazing place called Students' Life.
Yes.
And so I'm happy to be here. And thanks for such a huge and a lengthy introduction. I think it's every day that I start and keep learning and keep moving to the next level that makes it happen. Yeah. Pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me here.
Yes. So to put things in a context, sir, I would love to say that you completed your MBA in 1986.
88.
88.
Yes.
And I was 4 years old at that time. Right? So we can understand the vast experience and knowledge you have. And my first question from your profile, since most of us students, we love Parker. And it will be very interesting to know that you almost 22 years ago, 23 years ago, were instrumental in launching Parker in India when you were working with Luxor brand.
Yes.
So would you like to share this story? What kind of experience you had at that time? What was
wonderful
the marketing strategy?
Oh, that's so nostalgic. Thank you for even mentioning about that, because this was like almost 25 years ago when I joined in there.
Yes.
So I had come from a failed business because I started after doing my MBA in 1988, I declined my job offers from Times of India and Hindustan Lever, because I thought I want to be a businessman and my uncles were into printing business and they are there to support me. So I thought I'll do it. I've been a creative person, so I wanted to get into that. However, after growing pretty well, I failed after 6 years. And then after that, I joined Luxor. That time it was Luxor Pen Company, led by late Mr. D.K. Jain, who was a visionary. And he was the person who was instrumental actually in launching Parker in India after a gap of 50 years.
Okay.
And the most amazing part was that, so when I joined, Parker wasn't there. Fortunately for me, when after 9 months of my joining, Parker got delivered. And I was lucky to be a part of the brand team at that time, and who was instrumental in launching it in the market. So that was a great time. That was, I think, the best part of my professional career, because I learned a lot there. I was a star there. And especially, what was happening there was that, so I was this odd man out, somebody who didn't have any business experience, or rather any job experience. And everybody thought I'll be just hanging around at various places. But I landed up becoming one of the two important people in the organization to launch Parker in India. And that was, I think that happened because I had this entrepreneur mindset in myself.
Okay.
And I worked like sounds very traditional, very 88, 90 types. Sounds like almost like dinosaur age. I'm talking about the ages when a computer has just started to happen. I mean, that was the time I used the computer for the first time in Luxor Parker. Before that, I did not. So that was the time when, so I had the mindset of an entrepreneur, and I've worked like an owner, and that made me a star there. So having seen, and what was the greatest part in that was to see the transition from a promoter-driven company to a professional run organization. So till the time Luxor Pen Company was there, Mr. DK Jain was the only decision maker over there. When Parker happened, which was a Gillette brand at that time, Gillette team came in, and they were involved in the part of decision making. And actually, I saw it in 4.5 years. That is the time I worked there. That how a so-called Lala company becomes a professional run company, and that I think was the biggest learning for me. I learned how to think big, how to how to create solutions, and how to take it from a futuristic point of view. So I would say, as I said, a little old-fashioned. Of course, 1988, MBA would talk like that. Be a owner, and you'll never see, a success not happening to you. Think like an owner, because आज तो startup भी करना है, तो आपको ownership लेना है. That is the most important thing, I think.
Yes. So one question which comes in my mind right now is that India of 2000, before this 6th pay commission, 7th pay commission, and all of that, before this boom in economy. So like this is so many times when people do something, there are critics or people say ki, oh, it will not be successful in India. So Parker Pen at that time, which was a very costly affair, which is very costly even today also. So what kind of, perceptional challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them using the branding and marketing?
Yeah, so I would say it like this, that when Parker was, before the launch of Parker Pens in India, relaunch, I would say, after 50 years, what came in very, very importantly was in the research. What came out was that Parker was like 83% respondents actually knew Parker.
Okay.
And one way or the other had an experience of a Parker. And the most amazing part was that, they always had some kind of an emotional connect, which I would explain it like this. So somebody must have got it when, after doing a matriculation, that is class 10th. So his father gave him a Parker pen. So he had that. So on an achievement in a job, that is what was available to them. Correct. So there was a huge association brand recall already available to us. So despite the fact, so there was a huge aspirational value also available. So it became easy for us to introduce Parker in its aspirational avatar all over again. Not much of a challenge. The only challenge was, when we started off, we started with the premium category. So when I say premium category, at that time, the first range, which was launched of Parker pens, was started from 250 rupees for a pen to 7,500 rupees for a pen, which was gold plated and sterling silver, etc. And I'm talking about the year 2000. I mean, sorry, 25 years ago. So whatever that makes, 1890, 96 or something. And the challenge also was that, some of the people, the salespeople, were getting a monthly salary of around 5,000 to 6,000 rupees a month. For them to go out in the market and sell a product of 7,000 rupees was not an easy task. So more than the customer, I think it was more of the challenge for the seller, the salespeople, who could not relate to the brand, and therefore the new team was formed. And what also happened was, now a Parker is a Parker is a Parker, right? So whether at 250 or at 7,500. And then Vector happened. When the Parker became available for $100. The moment a Parker of $100 happened, it was all over. And Gillette, being a mass-oriented organization, they had it all over the place. Now, if a Parker was available to me for $100, why would I invest 7,000 rupees on another Parker? Though of course there's a lot of quality differences in terms of, I mean, if so I moved to, for example, I moved to some other premium brand, maybe our own. At that time Waterman was not there, but that is also from the same organization. So Waterman was launched, so people would jump to Waterman because it was not a mass product. So if I had to own a Parker, I can own a 100 rupee Parker. But if I really want to own a premium product, I might shift to the other brands. So that I think has been the trajectory where there have been challenges, but I think it has been over time. I would not say at the time of launch, because as you know, as I mentioned, Gillette being Gillette, markets the products very well. So there were showcasing programs, shop in shops made, showcases were made. Every shop was a displayed outlet. There was an experience which was being created there.
Yes.
To that an extent, it was a very successful launch. However, over time, though it sells the most even today, but the overall, I think the aspirational value of that brand somewhere, in my opinion, absolutely my opinion, got diluted.
Yes, definitely. So the next jump you had is that when you founded and you became the chief executive of AIPL Brand Buzz LLP. So once again, you became the founder and the CEO. So how did this shift happen, and how was this experience of being the founder once again?
Yeah, so thank you for adding once again, because yes, I had a business earlier, and as I said, I have always had a mindset of an entrepreneur. I mean, I didn't handle things pretty well initially, so I landed up being at Luxor Parker. But I think I'm very happy that it happened to me because it taught me a lot of things. A lot of things that I'm doing right now are an outcome of what I did at that time. I learned during that time. That is what gave me a very solid base of my understanding of running a business. So that was one. Second, when I started 20 years ago, so 2000 was the time when I started Brand Buzz merchandising. So it was not AIPL Brand Buzz LLP at that time. AIPL Brand Buzz happened in 2018 when I merged it with another brand called AIPL, and both the organizations got merged. However, from January 1st, 2021. I exited from there and I became the independent transformation consultant, and I'm consulting some other clients right now for transformation of people, products, and processes. So that's what I'm doing. So, however, that shift, as I said, I've always been having an owner mindset. When I was on the job, I worked like an owner. When I was the owner, I was anyway the owner, and it was not a difficult one for me to really do the transition, because I think that is exactly what I wanted to do forever my life. I mean, that's what I wanted to. So there was no major jump. I think the only on a lighter note I can say definitely sure is that so if you really have a mindset of an owner, the risk is when you're doing your own business, you have everything on stake, which is your own. If you work like an owner in a job, I think the risk is shifted. So it's a great idea to work in a good organization, work as an owner and make your money and make your life, make your career. And while the risk is being taken by somebody else. So I think that is the one big experience and one big thing I can say about the difference between the two.
Yes. So coming on to your next avatar, that is an author. So you have written a wonderful book, Get Up, Arise, boost up your sales success. And in this book, the book was given to me by one of our acquaintance, Mr. Chanan Rohiwal. And I have read the book also. And you have discussed a lot about storytelling in the book. And that is the main point which we are going to discuss today. So in a way, some people say, and in your book, it's about sales, but storytelling is innate in human nature and human culture itself. We keep on telling stories to ourselves also. Correct. A lot of the time. Correct. So the first storyteller and the first audience is we ourselves. Then even a job interview can be taken as a storyteller.
Absolutely.
Because the person is selling his own characteristics and everything. Then even for HR, finance. So how did you land up with this idea that storytelling is important? If you can share one or two stories from your vast career, when you realize that, yes, okay, storytelling is something on which I will work in terms of skills.
All right. So great. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting point that you just mentioned. So I would say like this. So since my school days, when I was in class 2, I went on to the stage. I have been painting, I've been, singing, I've been in theater, I've been doing everything else except studying. And sorry, guys, don't take it so seriously. But yes, I mean, I was an average student, but a lot of creative stuff was going on. And whether you talk about painting, drama, you talk about anything which is in the similar category, art form, is nothing else but an expression now. It's a story. You express yourself, you express. So I think since, I mean, I can easily say it was a part of my DNA from the day one. And then when I did my MBA, and before that when I did my BCom, I got really excited by marketing as a subject. And especially when I, remember, I mean, I'm very fond of movies. I watch movies and I love to watch them in cinema halls. I remember the days when I used to love watch. I mean, I would go early and ensure that none of my advertisements get missed, because the advertisements that would be seen there were not shown on the television that time. They were two different formats. And talking about those times. However, today, I mean, if I see, I observe the advertising a lot. I believe everybody is doing the storytelling, and that is where I think it's in my DNA. So that has always been the case. However, when I talk about in context of Get Up Arise, so I would say it like this, that I think it was many years ago when I was in Luxor Parker at that time. For one of the tours to West Bengal and Assam, I went along with the sales team and worked in the market to understand how the market is being operated and what is going on, and for launch of new products as well. So during that visit to the market, I landed up making one or two calls. I'm talking about the sales call to the retailers of writing instruments, the stationery shops, etc. And when I did three or four calls over there, all of them became productive, while the salesperson actually didn't get on any results out of that. So once, I mean, after I think the fourth call or so, he came back to me. I remember his name he was called Anindya Chatterjee. And so he came back and said, "Ki boss, aapko to training mein hona chahiye. You should be a sales trainer." And you'll not believe that was the first time I made a sales call.
Okay.
Right. So the difference I can now identify is that, so I think there was a gap of, the storytelling part. I tell you, I mean, so after that also, I just related back there. After that, I've been working with lots of clients, lot of people, and lots of salespeople specifically. And I started observing them more and realized that there was a gap. While everybody was, so talking about functions, talking about features, talking about advantages. If you read my book, there is something called Be Fabulous. So features, advantages, and benefits. The moment one talks about benefits, there's an emotional connect which happens. And benefits is nothing else but storytelling. I mean, so when I was talking to the retailers over there, it was more about talking about the benefit, that the prestige, the aspiration of selling a Parker pen, and also owner of a Parker pen, that really connected. I think that was what worked. And as you rightly said, even a job interview for that matter is nothing else but storytelling. I mean, imagine you are generally asked, one is generally asked, so give us your strengths, which are your top strengths, and we'll end up saying, I'm a team player, I'm a hardworking person, I'm very punctual. So is everybody else. I'm sure nobody says differently. But imagine if you could have said, or somebody says it like this, that, oh, I'm a learner, and in all my previous jobs, I have learned and adapted it to my, contributed to my job. And for example, and after that, you give an example. The moment you start giving an example, it becomes a story, and and the audience gets more engaged. So I think when you build up stories and give examples and some authentic stuff to the audience, whether you are interviewer or whether you are public speaking audience or whether you are buyer, if you're doing that, I think that's the game, and that's where storytelling actually happens. And that is what I've emphasized upon in my book also, that it is very important to engage the audience for the right things. Till the time it's a customer centric I mean, every business has to be customer centric. If you keep selling the product, it will never get sold. But if you can actually help him with a solution which your product can do it better, I think you might get a better productivity. And that's what worked for me.
Yes, definitely. So one very interesting story which is there on internet from your side is your TEDx talk of 2014. A good start in life. And it's a very insightful, very inspiring story. And it starts on a very serious note and it ends with full and full of laughter. So what process? So when, for example, I'm just asking you to share with us, when you got this call that, okay, you have to speak on TEDx for, let's say, 15 minutes. So how did you come up with this structure and this material? And how did you, summarize your 30, 40, 50 years of living experience in these 3, 4 stories? And what was the process you adopted?
Wow, I'm so happy that you've gone through it, and I'm really, it feels nice, and especially so when, I mean, TEDx at that time in 2014 in
Yeah.
India was not as big as it is
Yes.
today from a
Yes.
public speaking point of view, because public speaking at that particular time was not seen as a career option, as a
Yes.
professional option. It was
Yes.
just seen as because somebody who's at a place of leadership will have to talk, whether politically
Hmm.
or in the official manner or
Yes.
whatever. So when I got that call, and at that time it was only by invitation. So it
Hmm.
was not something that you have to apply and prepare for that. There were no institutes, there were no coaching happening. I think
Hmm.
that is what I know of at that
Hmm.
time, because I didn't get coached. So I got this invitation, and then they told me that a good start in life was the theme. I also wrote, and that time the theme of the event was this. So
Hmm.
it was not that everybody would begin have their own excuse me for that. For everybody would have their own independent subject. So the
Hmm.
theme of the event was a good start in life, and then out of that we had to create our own stories.
Hmm.
And when that happened, so I said I didn't have only one start in my life. When I
Hmm.
looked back, I realized there were major turning points, and I used the three turning points in my life.
Hmm.
Of course, first one was, as you said, it was a serious one because it was related to my father's demise.
Hmm.
It was not that when I lost him, how it impacted me. Whether it was more about what happened when I realized that he was the way he was, separated, and the way he was sent to his, the abode over there. So it was more about that. It started on a serious one, and the second part was that how I became the possibility of creativity and contribution. And third one definitely is that. When I was introduced to laughter yoga. So
Hmm.
I think these three things were very important part of my life. And when you ask me about how did I structure that and how did I put it together, I think one is I didn't want it to be कि मैं इससे पहले मैं काला था और
Okay.
वैसा. It was didn't have to be my past
Hmm.
turning into what I am. It was didn't have to be a rags to riches story. It had to be.
Hmm.
See, I'm a firm believer of that when we talk about public speaking and when we
Hmm.
talk about say TEDx or
Hmm.
any format, the most important component is connect,
Hmm.
right? And that is where I say that every time you talk about an emotion, there will be a connect. And believe me, as I said, I didn't want it to be a past oriented conversation. I wanted to be a future oriented conversation.
Hmm.
So while I got impacted by my father's demise, but how I moved on beyond that and then took it to laughter, which is the way I'm leading my life now as a laughterian. I mean, we are called laughter ambassadors. So it is
Hmm.
not a Kapil Sharma show kind of a thing. It is more about
Hmm.
laughter yoga. And I ensured I really wanted to, it had to be a very experiential oriented talk. It didn't
Yes.
have to be that I speak and then everybody else forgets. So I
Hmm.
ensured that at the end of the talk, I have a 2 to 3 minutes of laughter yoga actually being practiced there, because I wanted
Hmm.
to engage the audience in a manner that this is how,
Yes.
laughter yoga impacts you. This is how
Hmm.
it, lifts your mood. Despite whatever seriousness I've talked about, life is about laughter and you have to go on, move on.
Hmm.
So that was the level of positivity, and that was the message I really wanted to take along. And that's why that's how I structured myself. And being a marketing person, I think making good presentations is a part of the deal.
Yes. Yes.
So that's how,
Definitely.
yeah.
So, like in life, for example, in sales, also in any kind of field, also. So, we have discussed just now about a job interview. So, what is your strength, for example? So, there
Yeah.
can be 3, 4 answers by an individual to this particular question. So, what is the criteria through which we can say that, okay, this is a good story to tell, which will create, because every person, I believe, is having 4, 5, at least 4, 5 good stories to tell at every situation. So how
Yes.
do we select the one, and is there any criteria for that?
Oh, it's a tough one. You're right that everyone has a story, maybe one more than one. But what I would definitely say here is that your own story is your best story because you're already connected with it. And when you are telling a story, trust me, if you are okay, so even if in a job interview you want somebody to hire you after looking at who you are, and I'm sure there can be a lot of masking happening there, that you can hide something, tell something extra, and all that mathematics keeps on working. But having said that, what works in the long run is authenticity. If your story is authentic, if your story is something that you connect with very strongly, and that is your standpoint in life, you must tell that story. Of course, there is other there are what you call the protocols, that how you have to present, what is the choice of words, but that, having said that, your own story has to be the story, and that is what I think works the most, because story is a personal choice, and nothing can be better than. The only point I would like to make here is that whoever is the audience, when you're choosing a story, it has to be relevant to them. Yeah. So if I know that today I'm talking here, I know there are students across the screen. Yeah. So if I talk about my general life stories, that how I became who I am, may not be really interested to, they may not be very interested in knowing that. They might have related questions related to their careers and their jobs and how, as you rightly mentioned. So I think that is where, that is what is important. And that's what is the relevance is very important. And we look at the way open mics and stand-ups are going on today. They have their own stories, whether it is political, not so political, social, double meaning. It's all over, all across. Inclusivity is a part of this. So who's stopping them? And we should not, because that is the most authentic way of doing it. And that's exactly how people are today. And that is what we should be doing. So tell your own story,
Yes.
and make it relevant to the audience.
Yes. So just now you have talked about double meaning stories, right? So
You
are
got me
there?
there.
Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
got me there.
Yes, yes. So listening is also an art of storytelling. So I'm listening
Yes,
very, yeah, right.
yes.
So double meaning stories, and so are there some ethics also? Since we are talking about sales per se, and in job interviews also, in every place, are there some ethics also that you should, for example, one, you should tell the true story, one, the actual story, and then you should not tell an unkind story also. Sometimes we have a story, we know it fits the situation, but sometimes we restrain ourselves also that, okay, this is not the situation. So story is one thing and situation can be also another thing.
So story in this context, Deveshji, has a different connotation, right?
Yes.
Especially when I talk in terms of job interviews, stories will be considered as add-ons. The interviews don't revolve around stories,
Yes.
right? They bring in as I said, they bring in an element of authenticity. They bring in an element of validation, which you are the points that you are making. And then story is more about what you've done in the past, the experiences that you tell about. Story is not about essentially, "Arey, aap mujhe isliye interview please hire me because I have lost my father and when I was
Yes.
3." Doesn't make any sense, right? So I think these people sitting across the screen, these students are smart enough to know that, and therefore it is important that story should not be considered as a story in its
Yes.
literal meaning right now.
Very true.
Story, for
Very
that
true.
matter, over here is something which validates your point of view. It is about, and specifically I'm talking in terms of interviews.
Yes.
Coming to your first part of the question, where we were talking about, are there any ethics in when we are talking about open mics? I think, as I said, it is all about the audience in today's digital world. When everybody has a choice to to choose what they want to listen to, what they want to hear, it's absolutely their choice. So everybody, with OTT happening, I think I decide what I want to watch, right? And that is exactly what I think is important. People are saying many things to many people on different platforms. What you choose is your choice. So therefore, whatever you're speaking, it is anyway not for everyone. It is only for your relevant people. And as I said, relevance therefore is very important. And there are people who would love to hear
So
double
on
meaning
this point,
dialects.
yes, yes.
Yes.
So on this point, I would like to take one question by Ashima Agarwal,
Yes.
and it's very relevant to what we are discussing right now. So, can recruiters make out or find out which is a real story and which is a made-up story? And as an audience, so you have been on the other side of the table also. You have listened
Yes.
to so many stories, also recruited also so many people. So when people tell stories or when people talk about incidents, so how does one make out that it is true and it is fake?
Good. So thanks, Ashima, for that question first. And believe me, this comes with practice, one, and at both ends. So whether if you have practice enough to appear in a for an interview, make sure. I mean, just remember that the panelists on the other side also are equally experienced and they understand the gap. As I said, I think recruiters can feel where you are coming from based on the discussion. That's why the questions are like this: where you're coming from in terms of your experiences. So, just to give you an idea, I mean, just to give you an example, and allow me that is that when Sir asked me about my experience of writing Get Up Arise and where it came from, and I talked about that I was on a tour in West Bengal and Assam and with a salesman called
Yes, Mr.
Anindya Chatterjee.
Acharya.
Correct. So
Chatterjee.
if I had not used three names, then you could have thought about kahin gaye the. So I had gone to some one tour,
Yes.
and this happened. So the situation remains the same, but I added these three names deliberately to make it look more authentic. I don't remember the name of the person. I'll be very honest. Let me confess it here. I don't know whether that was Anindya Chatterjee or not, but that was definitely Bengali because I was in West Bengal. So
Yes.
if I had mentioned some other names, we could have been caught. I could have been caught.
Yes.
So just to add to the authenticity, I repeat during the interviews, use stories only to validate your point of view. Not essentially your interview cannot revolve around a story. So as I mentioned, when somebody asks you कि अच्छा अपना strength बताओ तो बताओ कि मैंने this is what I'm a learner and this is what I learned and let me tell you how I used it. Correct. So I'll also tell you one more interesting story from my life. So when I was in Luxor, and I use this example even today when I'm talking to my potential customers. I mean, I have to. That what do people bring? And I look for. I mean, I look for candidates who talk in this language. Is that what do I bring to the table? How do I alter things? So in my life, when I was in Luxor, I realized that there was a lot of money being wasted on a multicolor packaging, which is not visible to the customer. It is only a transit packaging. And I calculated the whole amount of, the quantity of, the numbers of cartons being made like that, the value, and what will be the difference if we make it in a single color, and made a proposition that if you change the packaging from this multicolor dabba to a single color brown box with a better quality material, we will land up saving 13 lakh 26,000 rupees every year. And I'm talking about before the year 2000. So in these 25 years, you can well imagine what they would have saved. And for that matter, that was my turning point in my career when when Mr. DK Jain actually shifted me from Luxor to Parker handling. They had to save money for the customer. You save money for your company. So just to answer your question, Ashita, I think what Ashima. So whatever you're going to speak, what is the level of credibility you are carrying and how are you actually validating with your examples is something very important. Recruiters do come to know, and also do not forget, even if during the interview you somehow managed to pass through, your credibility will be known in 3 months time.
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
I hope that answers your question. Yes, sir.
So, in another context of storytelling is the telling part. We have discussed about the story part.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so the telling part involves voice, pitch, body language, face expressions, and all of that. And you have just mentioned that now people are getting coached for that like platforms. So,
Yes.
on the basis of your experience, how do you say one can coach or train themselves? First of all, what's the importance of all of these? And then what can somebody do to develop an authentic storytelling style?
Great. So you right. Okay. So I am not a professional public speaker. I'm a professional who's spoken in public many times.
Yes.
All my years, all these 30 years and 31 years of 31 years of my career, I've spoken like every day. I somewhere or the other, whether it is a public domain or making a presentation or doing a training program. So everyday basis I speak. So I know that I use my body language, the gestures, the voice modulation, eye contact, all of that, which is generally coached upon. I do it, and thanks to my drama days and my theater days and my laughter yoga days, I have practiced that with the breathing exercise and stuff. So I have not taken any personal coaching on this in public speaking. I think, as I said, it's always been there in my DNA, God gifted, and I'm so grateful for that. But however, I've been fortunate enough to be having a huge network of public speaking trainers and coaches, especially after having so many, a couple of, I would say, last 5 years have been amazingly different in India in the domain of public speaking. I
Yes.
mean, imagine you guys are doing a public speaking subject as in your MBA programs. So I think that's so amazing. I mean, I've been lucky to be working very closely with the public speakers. You have one, Mr. He's called Author Sherry in the network, which is who's running a public speaking institute. He's one of the leading guys in this domain. He's wonderful. He's a friend, and also, I mean, we kind of mentor each other in various things. And so he's doing a tremendous work there. You have Swaleem Kaur in Dehradun from the Talk Room. She's doing a tremendous job in personality development, public speaking. So having said that, I would just say that, one, I'm not an authority on telling how this all will really work, because I have not coached myself ever. But its only thing is that one which is very important part is that learning is a process. I would say it like this. So while we learn about the subjects of our domain, I mean the domain that we work in, whatever is changing. For example, for me, from moving from a non-computer era to a digital era, I'm totally talking about digital marketing as a media. So I'm working on all of that. So I'm learning over there. Similarly, I think the biggest important part will be to learn to observe people and things around you. That makes a lot of connectivity is there, and then you get a lot of stories around you. And then when you look at people, network with the public speakers, network with such kind of people, network with the senior guys who are speaking a lot, and then see how what they are doing differently and what is it that they are bringing to the table. And there's no harm, of course, in getting some coaching from the authorities, I would say it like this. Imagine, I mean, just so what I've learned over there. So when I'm talking in an annual sales meet, and there are 400 salespeople sitting over there, I cannot inspire everyone. So that is not, so therefore my job is not to impress each one of them, but definitely whatever is there in my mind and what is it that I want to put across, it has to touch, move, or inspire them. So just imagine looking in some of their eyes and just asking a rhetoric, and then not needing an answer there, but just putting it there and leaving with a food for thought. So I think that works for them, and that is what happens. So look around for people who speak well. The professors are a good a good set of people who teach about how public speaking happens, because they are the ones who speak the most. And to different set of people, despite the fact that they are all from the same courses, but then there are different people over there, out there. So that's what I think is important.
Yes. So you touched a little bit about digital platforms.
Yeah.
So digital storytelling is also catching up very fast in India. A lot of people are doing blogs and YouTube channels and Instagram channels. So what is the uh, difference between physical storytelling, face to face, offline, and a digital storytelling? And how that is different, and how one can, what are the things one should be aware of? For example, because your bodily presence is not there. The aura, the magnetism you can create through your physical movements, through your hand movements are not there. And what can you do in this kind of scenario?
So you're right. I mean, we can see it in this session only.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
we already have 45 participants, and
yes,
I can see only you on the
mm,
screen.
yes,
And and also that I have to, so I think one thing which is important in this digital public speaking is more about that you need to do more practice, because you're talking to a screen, and you are also assuming that there are people who are listening there and who are actually listening there. And so when you do a lot of Zoom calls, so right now you are in a webinar mode, but when you are in a Zoom meeting mode, you are essentially talking to black boxes
yes,
and some names written there instead of people, right? So in physical space there are captive audience. They may not be, everyone would be very interested in what you are speaking, but then there you get the chances and probability of inspiring, touching, or moving them is still higher, because it is, I've been very clearly, I've been riding on this all my life, is that जितना मर्जी digital आ जाए, जितनी मर्जी technology आ जाए, it will always be an enabler, not the end of the world. I mean, it's not everything, for a simple reason that whether you are a buyer or a seller, whether you're an interviewer or an interview, whether you are somebody who's, for example, we both of us are panelists, whether we are a politician or an actor, whatever is going on, there is a human element. And therefore, emotional intelligence will always be the most important virtue that each one of us has. And that is what is allowed. And that is what actually the magic happens in physical meets than on Zoom. But then I think that if this is the new normal, this is the new normal. We accept it and learn more. So, but we need, but one thing is sure, that we need to practice more, because content becomes the hero, as I said, and it is on the upon the audience whether they want to look at you or hear you or not. So therefore content has to be the hero. Of course, a bit of body language is important, a bit of voice modulation is important, but then the impact of voice modulation also happens very strongly when you are talking in physical format than in this.
yes,
That's what I
definitely.
have to say about it.
Yeah. So the platform is only changing. Otherwise, the storytelling art almost majorly remains the same.
It is, because at the end of the day, the story has to be right. The
Yes.
story has to be important. That
Yes.
is what I think is very important. And it has to be relevant. I will repeat that. But because that's the only way to have a winning story.
Yes. So one last final question which I would like to ask is that I call my students as future CEOs, and they are going to be the CEOs. So
Yes.
on the basis of your experience right now, today in 2022, what are the two, three things every student, be an MBA graduate or every student who is aiming for the top position in next 10 years
Sure.
should keep in their mind? What are the things they should do? What kind of attitude they should develop?
Okay.
Yes.
So one thing which is sure, and I'm not going to touch upon majorly on that, is that they have to be an expert in the domain that they're working in.
Yes.
So whatever is and also, like, CEO doesn't remain a CEO for all his life for one company. The businesses change and they keep moving, and therefore whatever subject they are picking up, whatever company they're picking up, the business has to be very clearly embedded in their minds. So I am not going to talk about it because that's the need of anyway, the most important prerequisite. However, I would like to say three things here. So one is keep learning. And when I say keep learning, I'm not about only learning about the subject, of course, that you have to. Keep learning to adapt to the changes happening around you. So for example, you can see my gray hair, I call them silver hair. So it was, and you mentioned 1988 MBA. So I'm sure most of the people sitting across the screen were not even born.
Yes.
Yeah, but here I am trying to understand their psyche, trying to understand their open mics, trying to understand the language that they want to understand, learn, and then take it forward and do it. So learning is important to adapt to the new changes which are happening across us, around us, and adapt to it. And let's not forget, when you spell learning, Learning. Remove the word alphabet L and you are left with earning.
Right.
So more you learn, more you earn, that is for sure. And I'm a Jita Jata example of that, because coming from a non-digital space to be available, to be working in digital space, I think that is something which I've learned. And if I can learn, I'm sure this youth, this generation can definitely. So that's point number one. Point number two is, I think every CEO must have the most superior, people skills. They must hone their people skills, because as I said earlier, at the end of the day, emotional intelligence is going to be the most important virtue. Uh, Whatever stage, whatever life, whatever career that you've chosen, there is always, there is a human element there. That storytelling is all human. It is about benefits. Nobody, I don't know when will that time come and we will have love stories of robots happening. I don't think that is going to happen. So, and even if there's a love blossoming between the male and a female robo, I don't think that even sex difference will be there or not. A gender difference will be there or not. Robo is a robo is a robo. So I don't know. So people skill is the second part. And third, last but not least, the point that we are talking about, public speaking, they must have world-class public speaking skills, because they are the ones who are going to be the leaders. They have to be the ones who could be addressing at different platforms, representing themselves, representing their teams, representing their products, representing their company, representing their government, representing whatever they are representing. But they have to have the most amazing public speaking skills, because that, I think, is the least that they should be doing. So for me, to be a CEO, this is what you need. बाकी सब आ जाएगा. बाकी सब technical है.
So public speaking, people skills, and the learning quotient. These are
Yes.
the three things
Three
one
key
requires.
ones. The key ones. Adapting to the changing times.
Yes, yes. So thank you very much, Rajeev ji. Thank you very much for being with us.
Pleasure
And
is all mine.
yes, and sharing such wonderful ideas with us. For public speaking, for a good storytelling, the three principles Rajeev ji has given us. First, that there has to be a connect. Second, the story has to be relevant. And the third is that there has to be a reflection of emotional intelligence in the brand.
Yes.
So I hope that all the listeners, all the viewers, all the students are going to learn a lot about storytelling from this conversation. Thank you very much, Rajeev ji, once
That
again.
is all mine. Any questions anywhere? I am ready to answer.
Yeah, so I think all the questions are answered. There are no questions as such.
Perfect. Sounds good. I
Yes.
hope I was able to contribute to their learning. And thank you once again for giving me this opportunity to be available at their disposal.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Wishing
Thank
you
you
good
very
luck.
much.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.